Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Serious Yahoos, a podcast looking at Australian films that have been looked over, missed, unseen, or we just want to watch, really. Today, my name's Justin. I'm here with Jared.
Hello.
And Julia.
Hi.
It's just the three of us today, and we have a couple of, I want to say B-grade films or schlock films. I don't know, is schlock the right term, perhaps, based on the covers?
Yeah.
They could be diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt, as always.
So the first one we have is called The 25th Reich, directed by Stephen Amis, and stars Jim Knobloch, Serge Dinaro, Angelo Salamanca, Jack Wilde, and Dan should have read this before. Balkaban, I think it is?
Balkaban?
Yeah, Balkaban, we'll go with that. It has an IMDb rating of 3.3 out of 10.
Holy fuck.
And a Rotten Tomatoes audience rating of 12%. Jared, would you mind being in the back of the box for us? The 25th Reich.
I would like to renege my earlier optimism.
See giant bloodthirsty mosquitoes. See robot Nazi spiders. See rampaging megafauna. The 25th Reich. The time machine. It's controlled by the destiny of them all. Oh my god. Alright. Direct from screening at some of the world's leading fantasy genre and cult film festivals, so it didn't even make it to cinemas, the maverick Australian sci-fi comedy drama The 25th Reich is a heart-pounding, tongue-in-cheek homage to the classic pulp fiction stories of the 40s and 50s. In the midst of World War II, 5 US soldiers are sent to Australia, of course, on a covert time travel mission to retrieve a crashed UFO that might help the Allies win the war. Travelling 50,000 years into the past, the troop must conquer giant mosquitoes, savage beasts, and hostile terrain in order to secure their prize. But when a traitor from within steals the UFO and escapes through time, it's up to the remaining soldiers to save the planet and stop Hitler's 25th Reich from taking over the past, present, and future. Oh, this is going to be fantastic.
No, I have to give some full disclosure. I worked on this film in post-production in some capacity, in a few capacities. So I have seen this film, not for many years. It's been a good 5 years or so since I've seen it. I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Do I detect a note of sarcasm?
No, I have, like, as bad as it might be, I don't want to say anything. I have a soft spot for it because I did some work on it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's kind of in the vein of like Return of the Killer Tomatoes, where it's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
It does, the blurb makes it sound almost like a Penny Dreadful, and that's the kind of vibe I'm getting just from that. The cover is quite dynamic, and I'm really intrigued by the idea of, what was it, Nazi robot spiders, I think was the phrase.
Yeah, just the giant one on the front cover. It's like the front cover, it's like that kind of Star Wars style poster with, there's the main character in the front there with all the action happening behind them, sort of fanning out, and there's a lot going on, a lot of sci-fi tropes, with time machines and robots and classic 50s UFOs. I'm excited for other people to see this one. I mean, when I sort of thought of conceived this podcast, this film was in my head because it's one of those films that nobody's seen. And I think because it came out at the same time as Iron Sky. I don't know if you guys have seen Iron Sky.
I've heard about it.
Which is another sort of pulp Nazi sci-fi that came out around the same time. I think Nazis on the dark side of the moon, sort of thing.
That was the premise of it.
And it kind of, there was a bit of a trend for that, and maybe this got lost, or maybe it just didn't have the promotion as Australian films had. So, or maybe it's a cult classic. I don't know. I haven't done too much research, but I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited for other people to see it.
I'm sure it will be memorable and polarising.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure that there's some scenes in there which I think will be very polarising. Second film is called The Strange Game of Hide and Seek. directed by Nathan Hill, who was also the writer and producer for this one. Stars Andrew Carter, Nicholas Reitman, and Andy Delves. Now, this one has an IMDb rating of 6.5 out of 10, and no Rotten Tomatoes audience rating whatsoever. There was no mention of on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's like almost double that of the 25th Reich. But I think it's important to note out, because I looked at the distribution curve, that out of that, there was 23 votes for this on IMDb. 11 of those, 47%, 10 stars, and 30% of those 7 votes was 1 star. So I think this might have been rigged a little.
What, you mean the people that made the movie gave it 10 stars?
I feel like when we mentioned polarising, perhaps this is the film that really is polarising. So
I'll get you to read the back of the box for us, please, Julia.
So this is a faithful modern-day adaptation of the classic tale Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll is a wealthy young man who is unwell. He calls on some of his closest friends to attend what may be the final gathering at his mansion before he dies. At the stroke of midnight, evil is unleashed. Mr. Utterson, friend and lawyer to Dr. Jekyll, must discover the truth about his tormented friend. This cult short film is masterfully directed by Nathan Hill. It's worth noting that this is also the limited edition DVD and includes the making of documentary, which we may choose to enjoy. It is only 60 minutes, so it is actually quite a short one.
Yeah, I think that might be a saving grace for this one.
Kind of looks like a student film from the...
That's the vibe for it.
It's
I think Nathan Hill might have put his own money into this, maybe. I did a little bit of research on this, actually. Now, Nathan Hill has done a few other films. I think he teaches at a film at a college somewhere maybe in Victoria. I'm sensing that it's going to be very student-esque. Maybe slightly above it. They had obviously had a budget to put it out on DVD somehow, or found a distributor, Shock distributor for them. So I'm curious. As to how bad this will be. Is it going to be so bad that it's good, or is it going to be just really bad?
Well, at least the badness of it is not in question.
No. I mean, anything else you can say about this?
Well, you know my theory that we should watch the better film second, so we're still engaged. I think we're going to have to flip a coin to work out which one's the better of the two films.
No, I think...
Hide and Seek might be... Hide and Seek looks B grade, whereas 25th Reich is imitating B grade. So it's a win either way. Yeah.
But I feel like maybe... And because I have seen 25th Reich, that this knows what it's trying to be. This
okay.
Hide and Seek, I think, might be punching above its weight.
I think we're making an assumption there. Maybe they know it's trash. I mean, the cover does have all of the effort of a 1996 MS Paint job.
This was 2004. This one, Hide and Seek, so
only 8 years late.
Yeah,
I do love that they advertise in colour on the cover. I feel like colour was kind of the normal
It'd been
film.
around for like a good 50 years before this movie was made.
Yeah, but I guess maybe you have to play to your strengths.
2004. So, what sort of special effects can we expect, if any? Practical effects. I mean, we've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so we're expecting a transformation at the very least. How would that be practically handled? Lots of camera cuts? Will we see some cheap graphic effects?
I can't wait for the height of stage makeup. Like, I really want to see some really terrible prosthetics.
Yeah, students playing a period piece is always interesting because they always look too young for the film, or of the era, I find, and it takes me out of the my disbelief.
Because they don't go get haircuts.
Yeah. And all their suits are brand new or whatever, so they don't look like they've been worn in. Everything looks a bit too fresh to be of the time. Well, I mean, what do we watch first?
I think we dive into Hide and Seek, personally.
I'm inclined to agree. I want to like Hide and Seek. I can't follow it with a but. There is a huge but there. I want to like it. I want it to be an enjoyable film. I want to be captivated by it. However, following that first, following the initial review of 25th Reich, I feel like something has actually sapped all of my enthusiasm and optimism. Not all my enthusiasm, that's the wrong word. Something has sapped my normally positive outlook on the films where I'm like, no, they're going to be good. They're going to be good.
Right.
Because every time we do this, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. My optimism is generally present. It's often mislaid, but
Very true. I think you and I sit here going, things are going to be great. I mean, we don't know what kind of production values they're going to be. There could be a great soundtrack, and then the films happen.
and then we watch the films and we return to the table.
A lot of editing. Sorry, we got off track.
So hide and seek first.
Let's dive in.
Yeah,
All right.
let's.
I think we can only face this horror and get it over and done with. All right, let's go to the couches and watch some film.
Yay, popcorn.
Okay, we're back at the table after watching the two films for today. We started with the strange game of hide and seek. Jared, can you give us a quick synopsis of the strange game of hide and seek?
Well, look, I completely understand why I got 10 stars on IMDb. It's perhaps the best example of filmmaking and gothic horror that I've ever experienced. The acting was sublime. The cinematography, where they spun the screen around, just blew my mind.
The special effects?
The special effects were so good.
They were extra special.
But what happened in the film? What was the story?
Look, it was a bit hard to follow because some of the sound levels weren't great. And it was like, we found out more about what happened in the movie, I think, from the behind the scenes, and we found out in the actual movie. But the dude was having a party because he was dying, and he was trying to convince his friends, who were also doctors, to get on board with his crazy what was it called?
They did mention biochemistry, but then there was another one.
It was just biochemistry.
Biopsycholomedico.
Yeah, some shit like that.
Some ridiculous word.
Many prefixes to ology.
Long story short, our Mr. Jekyll, where Jekyll is apparently wrong, or the
Jekyll.
Jekyll is the correct pronunciation, as we got schooled by the director. He was taking some weird fucking potions and turning into a little dude and murdering people.
Do any of us know the actual story of Jekyll and Hyde? Have we ever read it, or?
Well, now I feel like we do know the story.
No, I feel like I know less about it now.
I have read it, but it's been more than a decade.
Right. Yeah. I'm not really sure it achieved its aim, at least laid out on the back, saying it was from the point of view of Mr. Utterson. I think I read that online, perhaps. Maybe it doesn't say on the back. It's supposed to be a take of it.
It does say on the blurb that it's Mr. Utterson, a friend and lawyer, must discover the truth.
Which, like, I mean, the build-up and everything is just not there. It's like, they're all there having parties, some people get killed. There's a bunch of flashbacks for not much reason, really. Yeah. So what have we got character-wise? So we've got Dr. Jekyll. We've got I just gave them
The butler.
We had the leather jacket guy who was supposed to be like an artist man about town, with his weird facial
Yeah, the most awkward facial hair I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The awkwardly cast female role that was overly sexualized. Girl number 1, girl number 2, girl number 3.
Yeah.
So in the credits, all of the women were either maid 1 or maid 2, or there was a group of 4 known collectively as ladies of leisure.
Yeah.
Did not have any lines, I don't think.
No lines.
Some chuckles.
Oh, well, the one of the maids had some lines, but...
Yeah.
What
all these people were doing at the party, it wasn't really made clear, I don't think.
Well, we've actually found that out in the behind the scenes. He was having a party or having the get together because he was dying.
Oh, right. I must have nodded off in that section.
I feel like you guys didn't actually look at this. Like, he calls on some of his closest friends to attend what might be the final gathering at his mansion before he dies.
Yeah.
But they don't really mention it in the film, though.
It's not really...
Established.
There's no... All right, now I get it. it's a 50-minute film. They're trying to cram quite a lot of story, especially given the time devoted to flashbacks in that time. So let's just say that there's maybe 40 minutes to the actual present-day story that they've allocated. There's no immediate background, like...
All they had to do was have, when the butler opened the door, say something like, "Thanks for coming, he's very unwell."
Yeah, something like
this
that.
This might be the last time you see him.
Exactly. Something along those lines of, I'm sure that Master Jekyll will be grateful for your presence at what may be his final party. Like,
Perfect.
12 seconds to say that.
Yeah. But instead we launch into flashbacks and confusion and whispering. And
and then like a couple of the other guys are doctors talking about his theories, or Jekyll's theories of what do you want to do? Like poison the world to embrace love or something like that?
You want to get rid of hate or something?
Yeah, some kind of concoction that would prevent death, maybe?
I think it was hate. Prevent hate, or take away hate.
It is inevitable that one day man would discover a vein so deep an abyss in human nature that his own soul becomes darkened from time spent exploring it. The global media has perpetrated a burden of evil atrocities upon the collective unconsciousness. And it stands that within one's own mind is the accumulation of all to be purged. My advances in psychobiochemistry are still without legislation from slow political processes and conservative medical associations. I can ill afford to wait for salvation from the inner forces that gather into futile wars. I have no choice but to continue purging myself of the horror with emotional genetic chemistry, releasing the rage, hate, and anguish in one final savage blow.
Association cannot condone this unproven practice you're suggesting. I mean, this requires greater debate and discussion than you seem able to comprehend.
Damn it, Lennon. It's your vote alone that is holding back the majority ruling in favor. Why can't you see that the time we waste today will plunge us further away from turning it around? My lifetime's work and the future of humanity will not be thwarted by your failure to recognize the genius of it.
What possible genius could that be, Chico? I mean, do you seriously believe that the future state of humanity can rely on your incredible claims of global emotional purging with one day allocated to a forum?
It has already shown its results in small-town studies. If we can implement it internationally, we will be creatures of love, not hate.
Jekyll, this is lunacy. You cannot act like some dictator and force this onto people. What about long-term effects? I mean, can we ever truly understand the complexities of the mind through biochemistry? If God had intended to banish hatred, don't you think he would have just done it?
And we should also talk about, the setting. The opening scene is of Jekyll typing at a laptop. As far as I'm aware, it's in the same time period as the rest of the film. It's not a flash forward. He dies anyway, so it has to be. And then the rest of it is like these weird affected British accents and people walking around with candles to light the way.
Yeah.
And
During
no other
the
technology.
daytime.
No other technology whatsoever. There's no... there's nothing else. There's a couple of lamps, there's electricity, obviously, but...
Can I take this moment just to say hello to Nathan Hill, who I'm sure has alerts on Google or whatnot to tell him when anyone does anything relating to this movie. So I'm sure he's listening to this right now as well.
I'm sure it
He was so cocksure, of his film and his abilities, and of just launching him to the future. And we googled him a little bit and his IMDb, and there's a few other films out there
sure he's Googled himself also.
Yeah, which I really want to chase down. I also looked at his Wikipedia page, and I'm pretty sure it was written by him.
Look, more power to him though for being passionate and for having conviction.
Well, I guess
It's just, it's not a film I would necessarily be proud of myself. Now maybe that's because I've got some standards or similar, but oh my goodness.
There was a point in there where I was saying it was so bad that it got to the good. Yeah.
Do you think it lasted the whole way through?
No, like the first half, like just a write-off. But there was a point, I forget where it was, but there was a bit where it started to get a little bit silly, and that you could.
And no, it wouldn't be right to call it a student film because there were some student actors in there. There were some local community actors, and there were some stage and screen actors, as they told us in the behind the scenes.
Some of the actors seemed okay.
I'm sure that as actors they are quite good. I cannot recall any of their other work, but I found consistently that every actor within this film, despite having months of preparation and rehearsals, came across as very wooden and expressionless. Like even in moments when they could have been somber, it was not solemn and rigid. It was just flat.
It was kind of overacted, almost like a radio play in some ways, like they...
Well, I completely disagree. It was just perfect.
And
it's a pity that we can't actually broadcast your face alongside that dialogue, Jared, because the contrast... Oh, gosh.
And the accents were a big issue.
And I found
the whole thing was painful, let's be honest.
The biggest acting issue for me was actually... Who was the main actor's name? Was
what,
it
the beady eyes?
No, Nicholas Whiteman, who played Jekyll.
Right.
For me, there's a real big mark of a good actor and a bad actor, and for me, it's in anger. If you can act out seething rage without resorting to kind of yelling, that's when I kind of look at you and go, all right, well, you know how to portray a character. But at every moment, it was just, whenever he needed to express that he was upset or something had rocked him, it was, I'm raising my voice. And
right.
It's not realistic.
No. There's no smouldering. It was just all. It was just turn up to 11 or not.
And look, some people are like that, but you would think that for a man of some education and intelligence, a man who prides himself on his work, although there's definitely a degree of emotional investment that happens there, there's some dignified restraint and witty retort would have been more appropriate to the character.
Sure.
Absolutely. When he, turns to Mr. Hyde, then you expect that kind of emotional outburst. But as Dr. Jekyll, the high society man of, novel research, I kind of want...
Yeah. That represented in the character. I mean, we don't see Hyde at all. I mean, we see a transformation, which is... the special effects... hey, look, it's hard to really bang them out because they gave it a go, and I know that feeling when you're on set, and you're all working together and you're all backing each other, and you all think it's going to turn out amazing, and it's kind of ultimately disappointing. But the special effect, the one special effect of him transforming, was like a 90s
animated.
Yeah, it was like a 90s FMV video game scene. It was something akin to that. And again, you never see Hyde. You see they tried to make a mask for him as we saw in post-production. In the behind-the-scenes stuff, but it didn't really work out.
But look, they acknowledged that, and I respect that. Now,
but I like the little aside from the director. It's like, because I wasn't there overseeing it, it didn't work out. I left it up to the subordinates, and they failed.
The minions.
They failed me.
You know what? The part where I thought it turned around, I remember now, is where it was with the axe where he was trying to cut the door down.
Oh, the quote.
And they didn't cut it. They just had him hacking away at the door for like a good minute or whatever.
69 blows with the axe, if I recall correctly. Just to go back to the special effects really quickly, I agree that the quality wasn't high, but neither was the budget. And we're looking at this, 15 years after it was made. Now, we're kind of a bit more used to a higher standard now, even for low-budget films. But at the time, that was probably pretty exit. Like, I mean, the budget of this film would not have been high. As one of the actors, as I think it was Nicholas Whiteman, was saying, I want to be in a cash machine and rolling joints with $100 bills. That wasn't the reality for this film. What I did enjoy about the special effects is that they went back to the kind of the twin snakes twirling about the sword as medical doctors, to then use that as kind of a representation, having the two snakes fighting,
right? Okay.
As something. I mean, symbolically, it maybe wasn't represented very well, but it had the potential to really illustrate that there was the chance that maybe this potion could have been to the benefit.
That's quite a deep reading into that particular special effect.
Overthinking is my forte.
I figure, something like that, perhaps you could just use practical effects. That's what I expected, maybe him choking or some smoke rising out of him, or,
Mouth foaming.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Cut the camera away, cut to him, he's a bit bigger and larger or smaller or whatever.
Smaller, 4 or 5 feet. And
yeah.
The wings was an interesting addition to that transformation.
Yeah.
But, I appreciate just that symbol. I don't know what it's called, but...
It's a caduceus. Are you talking about the snakes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Apparently it's often
it does
misrepresented. Yeah, it's actually not to do with medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the medical symbol is one snake. The two snakes...
Oh.
So what does that represent?
Well, that's what I'm just reading.
Okay. Why are you looking that up?
Well, let's edit that whole bit about two snakes out, because obviously they were wrong. But that was my take home from it. But yeah, now knowing that they used the incorrect symbol kind of makes me wonder. I mean, maybe it was just what they had on hand.
Maybe, but you seem like the art director, who was a bit of a character from the behind-the-scenes stuff, knew what he was talking about. Like, you think he would have brought it up?
It actually represents Hermes, by
the
extension, trades, occupations, or undertakings associated with the god.
Okay. Well, Nathan Hill, I looked him up as well. He's got a couple of other films that I hope to get my hands on. One's called Tomboys from 2009, and another's called Model Behavior from 2013. And he's done some other stuff, but they were the ones he linked on his Wikipedia page. So
I cannot understand why Aliens Down Under did not make the cut for that. Or Sex Down Under. I'm a little bit sad that there's only two in the, titled Down Under.
What was the other one? The Kama Sutra USA?
American Kama Sutra. Look, you do have to give it to him. I mean, he's obviously got a really large body of work, and sure, maybe the budget isn't high, but once again, the passion is there, and I respect that.
I feel like if you gave us the same budget and told us to go make a similar movie, ours would be 10 times fucking worse, probably.
Oh, no. I would probably devolve to claymation. I would do it all myself, and I would spend all of the money on cheese.
So ultimately, would you recommend The Strange Game of Hide and Seek to anybody?
No.
So it wasn't bad enough to be good to recommend to others? No, it didn't quite achieve that. I mean, it was a short 60 minutes. It seemed to go by pretty fast, I think.
That was its best quality.
Was there enough laughs to be had to make it worth watching for anyone else?
I only started getting that, when he was chopping the door down, which was a good, 35, 40 minutes into the flick.
And some of that hammy acting, I guess, got a chuckle out of me. But no, I mean, it'd be hard to recommend this to anybody.
We were laughing at the dude with the long hair when he's protecting that girl's honor from from Hyde, and then comes back a bit later on and is
the things I
want to bang all the girls. What's going on here?
Wow.
Yeah, there were some details that were overlooked, like that fellow wearing his shoes in bed.
Yeah. Apparently he was banging the maid.
Yes, well, in the appropriate attire.
Yeah. So then we watched the 25th Reich was next. Julia, can you give us a bit of a rundown of what happened in the 25th Reich?
I felt deceived by this film. It was advertised as a really interesting sci-fi war involving giant Nazi robot spiders, which I was particularly interested in, and kind of a focus around American values and Nazis taking over now. It wasn't really...
I mean, you got all those things, though. You got a giant
I just
Nazi
didn't get
robot.
enough of them. I feel like the first 2/3 of the film was 5 Americans in the Australian outback who initially went to look for 2 pumas without thinking about how they were going to hunt them. And then time travelling to 50,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like the first 2/3 of the film was too long. And I think that was kind of a collective criticisms that we had, is that every scene in this film was too long.
Because it was hour 24 in total. So you reckon they could probably got it down to 60 minutes?
Yeah, really. It could have been quite an effective short film if they had have trimmed it.
Yeah.
I like. Remember, I brought up the David Lynch thing.
Yeah.
Where he goes, how long's the scene? Who fucking cares how long? Well, yeah, these scenes were too fucking long.
Yeah, who cares?
I did prefer watching Twin Peaks, where the guy was sweeping the floor for like 10 minutes.
That was more interesting.
That was more engaging than like some of these scenes that just went on and on and on.
I mean, so the basic premise was you had the 5 soldiers hunting pumas lost in the Australian outback, but then they brought along a device with them that was supposed to be a radio transmitter to attract the pumas, but turned out to be a time machine stolen from a crash-landed UFO. So they wanted to go back into the past to claim the UFO.
So then they went back 50,000 years to get the spaceship when it was fresh.
Yeah.
So that then they could bring that back to the future to take over.
So the Nazis could... Well, because one of the guys turns out to be a secret Nazi...
The deception.
He was pretending the whole time that he was American and it was the American plan, but he was actually a Nazi.
Yeah, he was...
We found out through...
Yeah, so we had Weaver, which was the secret Nazi. Updike, which was like a southern hick kind of guy.
Yeah.
Ishbak, who was kind of the low-ranking Jewish.
A film-loving... New York Jew.
Yep. Captain O'Brien, who was an actor in Hollywood before joining the army or being conscripted, and it was
secret Jew.
A secret Jew or hidden Jew. Also gay, apparently, which is because he apparently they thought he banged Julie Garland, but it turned out he was banging somebody else, or his understudy John Garfield, I think it was.
Yeah.
According to his, and then Brunelli, the Brooklynite. Come Italian.
Say, Captain, I saw a Yank and Durant 3 times. And you and Judy Garland make a fine couple, sir.
So you're the sucker that came to see that movie, huh?
Yeah, sucker 3 times over, sir.
Well, you should have made it 10 times, Ishbak. You might have run it a second week.
Oi, oi, oi. Northwest Mounted Police, Billy the Kid's Gun Justice. I've seen them all, but a Yank and Durant, that's my favorite, sir.
You know, I haven't looked at another girl's legs since that night you left.
Well, I've looked at other men.
Yeah, but I bet you didn't look at them the same way you looked at me.
That first night in Kansas City.
That's a dilly. You know, when you beat this outfit, you gotta go into show business.
Maybe you'll introduce me to Judy Garland, hey, Captain?
Why, I'll introduce you to a great many things, Ishbak.
Say, Australia's some crazy place, huh? You seen the animals they got around here? Boing, boing, boing.
Ain't none of them as badass the chupacabra we got back home in Tornado Alley.
No, Updike, you're a punch-drunk hay burner. Everyone knows the chupacabra don't exist.
Hey, Borelli, if y'all's a guinea, how come you ain't nearly kissing Mussolini's ass?
To hell with you, you dumb rube.
Now, boys. We're all batting for the same team here. All for the same team.
I don't care what you goofs think. I'm as Uncle Sam as the rest of yous. 3 generations, all in Brooklyn. I might be a wop, but I ain't no fascist. You seen what those guys done to Sicily?
Brooklyn? When the hell did that become part of the States?
Say, if we do get invaded and there's a last stand, it'll be in Brooklyn. Jeez, there's some neighborhoods even I wouldn't walk into.
So there's a lot of friction between the sort of the Southern hick, the Italian, or the Italian heritage guy, because he was obviously fighting for the Americans. I mean, all of this really isn't important.
I feel like having 5 soldiers on a 2 animal hunt makes sense. What didn't make sense is the variety of ranks felt unrealistic to me, and also the fact that they just all somehow ended up to have completely different backgrounds. Like, there was nothing that any of them really had in common aside from the fact that they were A, all in the American Army, and B, on this mission. And look, maybe that's realistic for some missions, but it just felt very token.
Well, yeah.
You found some other things
I did.
unrealistic too.
I understand that in a film that involves time travel and Nazi robot spiders and what else have we got here? Giant bloodthirsty mosquitoes. They were my biggest issue, actually, the giant bloodthirsty mosquitoes, because I really like insects, and seeing them misrepresented...
It made you angry. It really did make you angry, didn't it?
It was during that scene that I suddenly realised I was not watching the documentary I thought I was.
So, they end up 50,000 years in the past, find the UFO, which the Nazi steals and flies off. O'Brien is communicating with the aliens through the gravestones, I believe.
I didn't quite get where that...
I think they were kind of talking to him. They're in the credits. They're given the name like the Anuski or something like that. It's the name of the alien species. You don't see them. You just hear the voices like "reach for the stars" or something. They keep saying. They instruct him how to fix the time machine because it was destroyed by Weaver before he left in the UFO, which he does. He takes them back into the future, but ends up about 200 years...
300 years.
300 years too far, where they meet the giant Nazi spiders because the Nazis won the war because they had the alien technology.
And turn themselves into robot spiders.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you? That seems like the most practical way to fight a war.
It seems legit to me.
Look, I mean, given the choice, who wouldn't take that?
That brings us to the most notable scene, I'd say. The most surprising scene, shocking scene, depending on where you're coming from.
The most disappointing scene.
You were disappointed by it?
I was. I mean...
There was a robot on human rape, I suppose, is the only way to describe it.
He pulled the guy's pants down
and inserted
built this weird,
unfolded and folded part of his robot anatomy. Now, when I say he, I mean Updike, who took the side of the Nazis and was transformed into a giant robot Nazi spider by a flying swastika.
I love that flying swastika. It looks so just naff.
And then proceeded to try and hunt down O'Brien. I forgot the other fellow's name.
Brian Brunetti, is that his name?
No, not Brunetti. Ishbak.
Ishbak, yeah.
Yeah, he proceeded to hunt down O'Brien and Ishbak, and upon capturing O'Brien, unfolded part of his robot body and then refolded it into a phallus and then anally raped him.
It was kind of arousing, yeah.
I'll take your word for that.
But you were disappointed by the scene because
I was.
You were saying the whole robot spider's body was moving in the action of
rape, which is inefficient robotic movement.
I thought you were disappointed because he didn't give him a reach around.
Well, I mean, we don't know what other assemblies were there. Like, I mean, what other actuators were suddenly engaged. I just found it a little bit unrealistic. Now, I get that Updike has only just recently turned into a giant robot Nazi spider. Maybe unfamiliar.
But you were down with that.
Oh, look, absolutely. The transformation process, from organic to inorganic material, perfectly logical. The fact that he was not given, the 10-minute briefing of how to move your robot spider body when you are raping a Jewish man. I mean, come on, guys. How much reality can you suspend?
Then we had the ending.
Which was great.
Which was just, they took off and flew into the stars, and then it's to be continued.
Although we understand.
What actually happened to the guys at the end? Like,
they got away.
Yeah. No, because the other dude that we thought was dead came back and then blew it up.
Well, they talk about going to take, to give them a little taste of Uncle Sam or something like that, and they walk over the ridge and see the airfield full of UFOs, which they take off into space and then it's to go to a war with God. Okay, well, I mean, the plot's pretty crazy. What about the production of the film? I mean, for me, the thing that stuck out the most was the oversaturation of, especially the greens. Now, I understand this was filmed in the Grampians, and to anyone, especially Victorians or I suppose Australians or anybody who's been to the Grampians, know it's quite it's not desert-like, but it's not. It's the Australian landscape in that way that it's very muted greens, greys, browns, yellows, This is very lush green. This is almost cartoon green.
Yeah.
But besides that, like filming wise, like I thought the camera work was great. Like it was
Camera work was good.
especially compared to hide and seek. Like where you can tell the camera movements, you notice them. Everything you see it, you can feel it shot through a camera. This one, you're paying attention to what's on screen. I thought they obviously knew what they were doing film wise.
We laughed at the music as well.
The music,
it was very John Williams-esque.
Yeah,
copying Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
Being inspired by.
Influenced.
Yeah.
Not enough that any legal proceedings would stick.
I mean, the budget was obviously more than hide and seek, but limited in their special effects. But there must have been some, because there's spent a bit of time. It's not cheap to produce some special effects like the spiders, the
marsupial lions,
and the mosquitoes, and the practical effects like the mosquitoes when they had to hold them and interact with them. The rocks, and even the time machine looks pretty cool. I can applaud that effort.
No.
I mean, like I said, I was involved in the post-production of this film in a small capacity, and I have a soft spot for it because, it was an enjoyable thing to work on. And I suppose that's a good reflection of probably the people who worked on Hide and Seek would be feeling the same way about their film. I know it's a dodgy B-grade film, but, I kind of applaud the fact that they made it. It's, you don't see much of that in Australian cinema.
What I really liked about it as a B-grade film is that they went in making a B-grade film and knowing it was a B-grade film. Like, they didn't try and represent it as anything else, and I respect that.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing in that sense. And I dig that. Besides the music, sound effects were fine. The edit was good, I felt, except for some of the scenes going for too long. Is there anything else you'd like to say about it?
I wouldn't particularly recommend anyone watch it.
That's the next question. Would you recommend it, Julie? Would you sit anyone down and tell them to watch this? Put it on a party, maybe?
Gods, no. I see its value in some regards. Like, as a B-grade film that set out to be a B-grade film, I appreciate that they were trying to do something pretty big with a really small cast. But I felt the dialogue was too forced. Uh-huh. Like, all of the interactions didn't feel natural. And
it was very pulp scripted in that sense.
Yeah. And it's not a film I would recommend to anyone I like.
Right. So I would recommend it to people who have an interest in B-grade film, obviously. It's
if you're into stuff like Plan 9 from Outer Space and like crazy like old school movies that are just a bit off kilter.
And I'd love to uncover more stuff like this made by Australians in Australia, because you just don't see much of it at all. Usually, and a lot of what we've discovered so far are either racial dramas or small town dramas. So something like this it's a rarity, or it's not a student film, or a purported student film. So okay, fair enough. Hey, it was again. It's always like a nice
bit of fun.
Yeah, we went in optimistic. I went in optimistic.
To be true, we did laugh a lot.
Yeah,
we did laugh a lot at it, but
did it feel like a drudgery? It's like some of the films we've watched, it's like a real dirge to get through. Today didn't feel like that so much for me.
I think it's because the movies were perhaps a little bit shorter than what we're used to as well.
And I don't know.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
It has burnt you out.
Yeah, I'm emotionally exhausted from
you'll be thinking about that.
I will be thinking about these
that scene.
Falsely represented mosquitoes for some time to come, and every time I do, I shall be filled with murderous rage with inaccuracy. I cannot.
Well, let's be honest. Every time you close your eyes, you'll be picturing that rape scene with the giant spider. Yeah.
No, I shan't. I shall be thinking of our oddly facial head friend from the strange game of hide and seek.
Of course, yes.
Until they amalgamate and you imagine him being raped by the giant spider.
Or I picture him as some kind of hairy mosquito.
Oh, fair enough. Well, thank you both again for joining me and watching these, taking a chance and watching these films.
Thanks for having us.
Always appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing these experiences with us.
And until next time, we'll see you around.
Bye.
Serious Yahoos is recorded at Fancy Goods, the noisiest studio in Melbourne. Theme music is Joker by Six Umbrellas via the Free Music Archive. All other samples have been used under fair use laws and belong to their respective copyright holders. Any questions or comments, please contact us at seriousyahoos@gmail.com.